Hello, friends, and welcome to A Brick Without a Wall. I'm your host, Laura, and I'm joined today by my good friend Amber from Road to Tar Valon. And today we are going to get into discussing Netflix's new series, Queen Charlotte. We're going to be talking about episodes 1 through 3. I really enjoyed this show.
Well, when we were talking before we recorded, we were both saying, personally, I find this to be the better series than the main Bridgerton series.
I agree completely.
But it's that extra focus on the older characters where I'm like, yes, I like that. I like that.
I do too. I liked it a lot. I think that they did a really good job holding, bridging the personalities between young Charlotte and Charlotte as we know her in Bridgerton. She delivered some real zingers in the first few episodes too. I just gotta start
to the left of me.
Yeah, I was like, my face is a rare jewel. I could still have people beheaded. You would be in the queue. I love that. And then virgins to the left, whores to the right.
It's so good. It's so good.
I love it.
That you can tell, with the dialogue of this show, I feel like it feels a little bit more natural because I feel like the writers of this show aren't 17-year-old girls. So when
Agreed.
you give these lines to a woman and not a teen, it feels a little bit more natural.
Absolutely.
Because I don't want to jump to conclusions and be like teenagers aren't deep or whatever. But I think it feels really nice that we've got more attention on some of these older characters and not just revolving the relationships of teenagers. And I think it's nice. It's really nice to see her backstory because when Bridgerton began, her character was just Queen Charlotte as the queen, the older character. She was so intimidating and forceful and a little bit rough. And now that you're getting to know her as the younger person, you can go back and see all of the moments where she actually is a very tender person, and she's giving these girls that she's setting up to their husbands or making these couples, the matches, I guess. You can tell these moments where she's actually being very caring and she's giving them options sometimes, you can walk away from this.
Yeah.
And she's not forcing them into things. So it's softened her up so much. I love that.
Oh, I agree. I love it. Okay, one thing I did really enjoy was watching the relationship between her and Brimsley form in the show, because when you get into if you start with watching Bridgerton, they already have a well-established hearty relationship between the two of them, but you get to see it culminate from the start. And
So
I
good.
love his character
good.
in this is so good. I love Brimsley in this.
He is a star. He is such a star of this show.
Him and
He's so
Reynolds'
good.
relationship is one of my favorite aspects about this show.
Yeah, it's great. It's great.
It is.
It's what I think is really interesting about Brimsley is the way that he's set up. Young Charlotte comes in and she's like, "Tell me about the king. What is he like?" And he's like, "The king is the king." Yeah. And there's that moment where you don't really quite know whose side he's on. Is he actually working with Augusta, the mother of George? Or is he more someone she can rely on? So there's that question mark at first. And as things go further, I've only watched the first 3, but it seems like he's fully Team Charlotte. He's got her back.
Absolutely. Well, he had said at one point, he was like, "I'll never tell you what you can't do, but I will tell you how to successfully do the things you're not supposed to do." And right there, I was like, yeah, he's part of the team. He's part of the team for sure.
Yeah.
And like I was saying, I really liked him and Reynolds' relationship because if you think about it, the people who serve the king and queen in him and Reynolds' positions, I'm not actually sure what they're called, but they give up their
like
entire...
a footman or something?
I didn't know if
know.
it would be a footman or like a major domo or how that works for like what their official title is. But these people give up their whole lives. Like, he spends his entire life 5 paces behind her.
Yeah.
So I was really pleased that the two of them like could find a way to build a relationship that is outside the royals that they serve. Because
Yeah.
I don't
And
know how you'd get anyone to sign up for that. You know?
no.
How do you even
No.
meet people?
And it's such a sacrifice. Like,
Absolutely.
this is either something you would do because it was your only option, like that's the only way you can make your living, or if it's something that you're really passionate about. So
Oh, I
like
agree.
he seems to be like in this because like he has this calling to it. Like he sees this as his duty. So we love Brimsley. He's
So do
great.
I. How do you feel about the constant jumping back and forth between the past and present of the
I like it.
Bridgerton universe? So do I. I
It's
think they did it really well in this show. Like, I really enjoyed getting to see more of Charlotte in like the more present day form too. I had no idea her and George had 15 children from Bridgerton. I did
right,
not know that.
right. Yeah,
15 of them, which is
it's
wild.
it's a lot, and no, no
No
grandchildren.
royal grandchildren. The way she trips about bring me a royal baby. I do have a question though. I don't know if you'll know the answer, but I'm curious and I might have to. Why can't any of George and Charlotte's children ascend the throne? Or is it that they're not going to choose one to ascend until they have royal heirs?
Until there's a backup. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
Because
that
if
makes
anything
sense.
happened to the children and they died, then there would be a power vacuum and
Right.
drama, chaos, anarchy.
Yeah. The way that she's always says sorrows and prayers to everything
sorrows,
she feels.
sorrows, prayers, prayers.
Yeah, everything she gets uncomfortable in, she's like, sorrows and prayers. And then she just keeps going with her own line of thought.
No, I love it. I love her monologues. She's so good. This actress, I mean,
I
the
love
entire
her.
cast is great, but she is just like if I saw her walking down the street, I would probably like it's the
I'd
queen.
get excited. I'd
It's
get
the
excited.
queen.
She is I agree. She is a wonderful actress in the show. And I do also agree that they have casted these shows like Bridgerton and Queen Charlotte really well. I
Yeah.
don't know as though I would say that there's any bad acting in either of them.
No. Even, I mean, young Lady Danbury, Agatha Danbury, her mannerisms match up to like current timeline
Yeah.
Dansbury a lot, where like the mannerisms are often like almost right there, where it's like, yeah, like it's the same person. It's the same person. I can see it. It's so smooth. It's smooth.
Meeting young Lady Danbury was wonderful.
And her story is wild. I would have never guessed that's what they were going to go with as like her backstory.
Her backstory was very unexpected and put so much in perspective.
Yeah.
I loved meeting young Lady Danbury. Like,
Same.
I really did. Her character is so brilliant too.
Yes, yes. She has that almost Machiavellian. She's always like one step ahead of everyone else. She is the opposite of naive, where, I mean, married to a much older man, she is able to like get his position moved up, therefore like hers as well. And while she's doing this, she's also becoming good friends with Charlotte, but also working Augusta, the mother of George. So she's working like all the angles and all of these different people. And I think since I haven't watched the last 3 yet, I'm worried for her character if it's going to come out that she's actually going to the king's mother and telling her like what's going on. So I'm a little bit worried for that relationship there, but I'm sure it'll all get hammered out because they're clearly like friends in current time, so there must not be any hard feelings.
Right. I am not gonna lie, watching Lady Danbury, like young Lady Danbury, have to suffer through her husband taking credit for everything she is making happen.
That
I
was
don't
so
blame
rough.
her. When
It's
she,
so rough to watch.
it's offensive because he won't allow her to be recognized for anything she does. He just chalks it up to himself and his own greatness. Sir, she has gotten everything you have wanted.
Right. Everything in his wildest dreams. Like,
Right.
it's just
Now,
checking him down the list.
I will say this, his feelings that he has about his current situation, absolutely valid, understandable. Yeah. Absolutely. But at the same time, he spends so much time diminishing her in the wake of those feelings that it makes it really hard to feel bad for him.
Yeah, yeah, agreed.
It makes it hard for me to feel bad for him.
That cliffhanger, though, where I'm at, where he has a heart attack, something, I don't know what. I'm very curious to see what happens and
I just
how
assumed
she
he was
reacts
dead.
to that. Yeah.
It's like, oh, dang, is Lord Danbury dead? Is this what happens? Because if you think about it, Agatha Danbury doesn't really talk too much about her marriage in Bridgerton, so everything we know is just what we've learned in these first couple episodes. Right. And it looks like he's dead. It definitely looks like he's dead.
I like how I like her relationship too with her handmaid or whatever she is.
Her handmaid.
That was a really nice relationship. I like even the characters that are like the quote unquote kind of like the villains of this story, like Augusta, the king's mother. Michelle Fairley is the Stark mother. She's Catelyn Stark.
I know. I was excited.
And she is amazing in this. Like
she is.
She's so good. She's so good. Like she's definitely like hateable, the things that she's doing, but as the series goes on, you're seeing she's not being hateful or a terrible person. She is concerned for the status of her son and what would happen to the whole country if it comes out that the king is ill or has an incurable health problem that's going to affect him being able to rule or not. So like as the season goes on, you're like, oh, okay, like it's making more sense, where she's kind of, you can still very easily dislike her for the things that she's doing, but she's in this moral quandary where you can understand why she's doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. She's in a gray area for me. Mm-hmm. I'm not like a huge fan of her character for obvious reasons, but like you said, at the same time, her motives here are understandable. She's trying to protect the monarchy, for her family, for George. I really thought my focus of this podcast was going to be sets, costuming, hair and makeup, because that's been my focus for Bridgerton. It's a big part of why I watched that show. These did not disappoint, but this storyline is so much more superior.
Yes. I mean, I was excited to cover this for that main reason.
Absolutely.
Like, okay, I want to talk about the sets. I want to talk about the costumes because I knew they were going to be good. Like, just the images, the trailer alone, you're like, okay, it's going to look flawless. And it did. But I was not expecting to like the story as much as I did. I like
same.
Bridgerton. Like, I like it. I don't think it is, like, the best show that ever came out, but I do appreciate it quite a bit. And this, I think, is a little bit more elevated than the main series, which is based on romance books of, like, falling around young characters, which nothing wrong with that. But this feels a little bit more elevated, in my humble opinion.
I think that this one actually has a superior storyline.
Yeah.
This one's storyline is much more engaging and intriguing for me.
It's a little bit more mature, I feel
Agreed.
like.
Agreed. I think it's more mature and it has more complexity to it because in Bridgerton, most of what we were trying to figure out season one is who is Lady Whistledown.
Right.
We figure does Daphne get married, and then we figure it out, and then we go to Anthony in the second season, and I would say that I liked season two probably better than season one.
The cast is so good. I mean,
Yeah.
it's they do so well with their casting. It's no different here with Queen Charlotte, but
Yeah, but then we get to Queen Charlotte, and it is so good. I
I had
I
okay,
hope this isn't a one-time thing.
I had seen when they were running the trailers on like social media. I was looking in comment sections and it was a bunch of people being like, "No one asked for this show. Like we want Bridgerton 3, like the third." Like, and it seemed like some people, not all, but some people were genuinely like very disappointed with the fact that this wasn't going to be the Penelope plot for book 3 of Bridgerton series. And I was like, "Oh, okay." So it seemed like there was a little bit of contention there. So I wasn't sure like what I was going into. If it was just like, well, we're just trying to do like a expansive world and throw more, series under this name, get more views, get more plays. I wasn't sure what to expect, but so maybe like my expectations were low, and so then when I'm presented with the story that we got here, I'm like, I really liked it. I liked it even better.
I don't know if that's necessarily it because I went into it assuming that it would be, integrated. I didn't assume that this was season 3. I figured this was kind of like what they did with The Witcher, where they threw in Blood Origin to kind of give some context there. I assumed this would be a context series, but it surprised me in the most fantastic way.
Yeah,
I'll be honest, I don't know how stoked I am to watch the Penelope plot.
That's
I don't enjoy her as a character.
it's a definitely like younger story, and I don't want to keep like relating to this in terms of ages.
Right.
But like it feels like on a maturity level, like it's just a little bit different. And what we were saying about with Queen Charlotte, like there is some of these like gray characters and there's a lot of depth there, and it's nice, it's refreshing. I I think it's better. Yeah.
I agree, especially like because we're not only getting young Charlotte, we get young Agatha Danbury, and then we also get young Violet too.
Young Violet is just a doll. Like
She's fun.
she's
I
great.
enjoyed
She's great.
I enjoyed the scene that we met her in where she shows up to intellectually crush her mother and then throws
Yes.
it on the end. She was like, I've been asking my governess to get me advanced mathematics, but they seem to keep teaching me Latin. I loved it. Her mom said that's too much thinking. Ma'am, there's no such thing. That's not real.
No, it's good. Like they're bringing in all of these characters, and I'm really appreciating getting to know their backstory and kind of like how they've risen to their positions.
Absolutely.
It's nice. And too, like it also, like from a world building aspect, it's really nice too because you get to know like, okay, obviously in Bridgerton, not everyone is like Eurocentric. And
Right.
I think that is so nice going into Queen Charlotte, and they're telling the story of like why things are like they are. And it makes sense. It's not just like some ham fisted, like, well, we just did it to be inclusive. It's like, no, like we've made this world and this is why it is like it is. And
Oh, I
like
agree. I am really hoping that we do get some more background context on the Great Experiment, though, because they speak a
Yeah.
lot about it, but there hasn't been much like contextual detail about it, like what is their ultimate goal? Why are they doing this? Because some of the Lords of Parliament still seem really apprehensive about it, like Lord Bute. Lord Bute's always got something to say.
He is the one that's always with Augusta, right? Like one of the older.
Yeah, he's one of them. He's
okay.
I remember that he's the guy with like the narrower face, and then he has like the really tight wig with the
Yes. I know who you're talking about now.
I love the wigs in this show. They are top notch.
Okay.
The wigs are wildly good.
I did some background searching. Some of these wigs, I'm not surprised at all, weigh like to an excess of 30 pounds, which totally I could see that. I could totally see that.
I honestly assumed that by looking at I took a bunch of pictures of wigs so I could blow them up and really get like a feel for how much extra filler hair they're using, what kind of supports they might have. I assume some of them would be in excess to 50 pounds.
Yeah, they're massive. The big heart-shaped ones, oh my God. Like, they are so, so good. And what I even loved, too, like, even more, is some of the scenes where she's getting ready for bed and they're putting her hair up in, like, these, like, rag, like, curls. I don't know what they're actually called. But, like, it's, like, a protective, like, way to, like, get the curls to stay in their shape. And it all feels so accurate and nice. I think, like, in the past year or so, one of the shows that had some of the best costuming was House of the Dragon. But
they had
this show, the wigs on this show is like at a 10, where House of the Dragon is like a 5. Did not have as easy, or I guess as good of a time like figuring out how to do wig styles on non-white people's hair, like European straight hair. Because here, when we're getting these updos on the wigs from Queen Charlotte, like standing ovation. We have both worked with wigs. We are not like coming to this as outsiders, but it is not easy to do. It is not easy to find good wigs that look good, that can support that weight. Like, that is just bananas that they've found like these designs and made these. My mind is blown. It's so
they have
good.
to have some of the best like wig builders,
the best
like the current filming industry, because these wigs, like they are complex. You're talking about like building support structures, adding like flourishing, and they're not just doing them for Charlotte. There are wigs literally on everywhere in some of these scenes.
I think they said that there was over 1,000 wigs on set, like in their like store room of like all of them that they need, because even the men are wearing them.
Right. I wonder how much time they spent in pre-production building wigs. Like, how many people do you think they had wig building? Because I'm sure they have a handful of like designers, because some of Charlotte's
show, telling who does what, and
But some of Charlotte's wig pieces that were from like present time were ultra complex. Young Charlotte doesn't wear a lot of wigs, as we see. She goes more with her natural hair, which I love the natural hair looks
too. The updos are so good. Like
her wedding hair, when they had it just like loose and flowing, it was perfection.
It was so good. It was so good.
Current Queen Charlotte, as she's bullying her children about like royal heirs, her wigs are ultra complex. There's like, it's almost like a wig within, it's like wig inception. Like the wig is wearing more wigs on top of it, and some of them are so tall. Could you imagine having to spend hours on set with that thing crushing down on your neck? No way.
They deserve a raise.
They deserve awards for that.
Yes.
Like, just for rough working conditions, but it's perfect.
Yes.
I'm so glad they got through it.
It looks so good. It looks so good. I can't say enough good things about the hair alone. Like, if we're just talking about the hair, it's a 10.
Oh, it's an absolute 10. What did you think of the costuming? Because I was surprised.
So good. Also very good.
It was,
the crowning scene where they're wearing the
coronation,
the white fur that has like the black dots of fur like incorporated into it. Like it wasn't so over the top where at first I was expecting like opulence, like the most over the top, and it was a little bit more simple than I expected, but it was still so nice. Like, it was so pretty to see. They look great. They all look great. Her evening outfits where she's kind of like running between rooms and like she's not in her daily, getup. Like, even those look great.
Her house clothes.
Yes, like her robe type.
Could you imagine how much time she would spend a day getting ready? Because all they seem to be doing is changing her for different, times of day that she's going to eat at first. I really, really love the costuming from the first episode. So when she first comes over from Germany and she's wearing like the really opulent lace and all the sapphires and then the whalebone where if she moves too much it might, impale her.
Shred everything.
But those costumes where they're more of the French style from that time period of fashion, I love historic French fashion. It's so much more progressive than the English fashions were. And she looked incredible at the wedding. I'm so glad she got rid of the English gown for their family. I'd be so mad.
If you weren't paying attention and if you weren't on the lookout for the costumes, for the hair, for the design of this show, this was like a flashing neon light that's like, pay attention, the costumes, like, look at this. And it's also brought into the storyline where she's like, I'm tired of it, like, I'm just being dressed like a doll, like, every day. 3 wardrobe changes, like, where's my husband, like, where is he? And we're getting that like juxtaposition between her feeling like she has to be presented in a certain way and what's expected of her and what she wants for herself. And it all ties in. I like that.
I do too. I really liked in the opening scene where she smashes that bust on the ground. I'm sure it was a very important piece of art, but she got mad about what she was overhearing and just threw it to the ground and stormed off. I love that because that seems so her. Yeah. And then the scene where she's like, I'm going to leave over the garden wall. I got to go. Yeah. That scene was a really great way to introduce George, too.
Yeah, it was. I appreciate how when he's introduced, it's like, okay, like, he's a good guy. He's really endearing, and he's like, see, I'm not really a monster. I'm not a troll.
Not a troll.
Yeah, and then,
or a beast.
Like, as soon as you like put your guard down and you're like, okay, it's gonna be fine, then they come back and he's like, this is your house and I won't be living with you. And it's like, wait, what? Like, what's going on? And
I was shocked. It was a good way to meet him because at first you're like, oh, he's so nice and he's not like most monarchs. Mm-hmm. But then after their wedding, he's like,
question mark.
Welp, I got you this house, so I'll check you later. Bye. And she was like, what's going on? And then he turns into, I'm the king, I do what I want. And then you're like, oh, that's
what's
weird.
Going on with
what's
this
going
guy?
On with him?
Yeah.
And then like with George, we get into episode 2 and it's like, okay, something's actually going on with him. And it's like, is he physically sick? Is he psychologically struggling? What are we seeing him have a panic attack? Like, I'm not right. I thought he was having panic attacks, but he's like very serious about keeping those to himself.
Right. And then the mother is obviously very clearly trying to keep that out of wraps. Any public sphere. Yes.
That's got to stay under wraps. Like, mm-hmm. I could see where in that time period mental wellness issues wouldn't be well received. And
right. I mean, think about in the United States how much panic goes into anything if the president is unwell. Like, right. It's important, and it's understandable like why the mother is trying to like keep this all under wraps
until they have an heir, at least.
Exactly,
We need
exactly.
those
And that,
royal heirs.
right, and that makes me wonder, like, is this why, she shows up in England from Germany, this like 9 hour carriage ride or whatever, how long it was, probably longer, probably much longer, maybe 9 days. But she shows up, and it's not like, no, you don't get to meet the king, just change your wardrobe and you're getting married now. There's no time for acquaintances.
That
And
part was wild.
it has to be due to his mother knowing about his health and being like, we need to get this done now before anything gets worse. We need an heir. And
Don't they? Doesn't the whole conversation between Violet and her parents start when we first meet young Violet? Because she asking somebody about why they had to search all over Europe to find someone to marry the king?
yeah,
So they're
it,
going real deep undercover here. They really want
yes,
somebody who has no inkling that he might have mental health issues.
right. When I worked in the neurological wing in the hospital, like this, I was like, oh, it's like early onset dementia or something where he's waking up and not knowing where he's at and just kind of like wandering the halls and like just walking outside and just he's off, where's he going? And I don't know exactly, I haven't finished the series. I'm really curious to see like how that progresses because in Bridgerton, in the main series, we have that one moment in two where the king kind of walks in on the queen while she's entertaining and she has guests, and you can tell like she doesn't know exactly in that moment how to proceed, and she
Right.
does things like she does her best and like things are okay, but there was never any follow up on that. So like now it's all like making sense and we're going back in time. We're like, oh, okay. Like the pieces are all falling into play and you're getting to know more about it. And also like in the main series, she is always surrounded with a pack of Pomeranians.
Oh my
Always.
gosh,
There's
and it
so
made so
many
much
of them.
sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
And going back, it's like every time that he had to go away, like he doesn't remember giving her the last dog. So what I'm assuming is every time like he kind of has a moment of clarity and he's like, oh, I have to go away. He's like, well, I should get her like a companion. And so she just keeps ending up with this giant,
Herd. She's got a
herd.
whole herd.
Yes. She's a whole pack of Pomeranians and I love that.
I actually like how this show put a lot of passive things into context about Charlotte, like the Pomeranians. I mean, I didn't realize that she was obsessed with heirs until now, but that seems to be kind of a new thing for her.
Well, it's because what I'm assuming is that whole scene in the beginning episode where we're going to modern times, she wakes up and she's frantic and she's like, tell me he's alive. Did he die? Did he die? And I'm assuming like that scare of the king dying and there not being an heir has like put her in this state of like, okay, like we have to take like matters into like our own hands right now, and like we have to have an heir because the nation as it is, like if there isn't one and the king dies, like panic, and there
Yeah,
has to be one. So like
there
his
has to
health
be.
is bad. He's not in great health if she's assuming in that opening scene that he's died.
I could not imagine existing solely for the purpose of creating royal heirs.
Hell no. No,
Like, I
never.
never question why she's unhappy in her role to start with, because everybody, like, even when she meets Augusta, she's like, you have good hips. That's necessary. I'm happy. And then, like, grabs her. Just let me check your teeth and your hips, ma'am. That's
Oh
all I need to
God.
see. Go put that wedding gown we got you on and rush
Yeah,
down the aisle. No, thank you. I would try and escape
it's
over the garden wall, too.
it's literally like at the 4-H fair.
I know we had talked about like costumes and hair, But the sets, we kind of skipped the sets. I got to tell you, for this,
They're so good.
they are so good. I've watched the first 3 episodes a couple times now. The first one is, like take it in. The second one is to catch details I missed.
Mm-hmm.
There are complex paintings everywhere in this show specifically. Not just all of the royal paintings that we see, which I actually really like that we get to see a lot of these royal paintings hanging up, but there's so many sets in this show.
Yeah.
And so many of them are so like period appropriate while also being extremely impressive at the same time.
Yes. Yes. They definitely did their homework in terms of like what is appropriate for what time periods, and of course like they take some liberties here and there, but I think that's just a part of the art form. Like of course
Agreed.
like you don't have to
Yeah.
make it
It doesn't have to be 100%.
right, but I like that little extra flair to it.
You know
But
what one place of extra flair is that I was super impressed by, but also
Tell
love
me.
this scene? So in Bridgerton, the original, at some point, Queen Charlotte talks about how she discovered Mozart. And then they include the scene with Mozart. But
yes.
in my second pass of watching it, the lid of that piano has a full-scale work of art on it, on the underside of it, the side that's propped up when you're playing.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you look, like, you'll catch the camera coming up out of the piano. And the second time I watched it, I realized, like, that first artwork that you see is painted on the inside
The
of
underside
a piano.
the
Yeah, the underside of the lid to the piano. And I was like, that is what you call details all the way through. Like, nothing is overlooked in their set details.
Something I noticed that I thought was really interesting is when we flash back to the current timeline, the time period has changed in the wardrobe for everyone else except the queen. She's still wearing the same time period costumes of when she was young and met George. And I'm like,
Ooh.
is she doing that just for him so she appears rememberable?
That's a good point.
So she's always as he remembered her when he was at like full clarity, maybe?
Ooh, that's a really good point. I hadn't thought about that. Because you're
she-
right. She doesn't necessarily change. She still wears a lot of the same styles
Yeah.
from when she first came to England. It works for her. I'm going to say that. It definitely works for her.
Yeah.
Even Brimsley's outfit changes exponentially through time.
Yeah. Current timeline, it's like the tighter, small, like paneling here, and it's a lot more like
A-lined.
A-line instead of, the full, like,
The fitted gown
Flip.
and hoop skirts and
mhm.
yeah. No, they definitely had changed styles, but her style doesn't change. I actually had wondered if it was just because she's a royal, so she is meant to be different. But I
But you
actually
could also see
really
her
like your
becoming
theory.
more. Yeah, but you could also see her becoming more of the trendsetter because she is the queen. So she could be the one taking things outside
Agreed.
the box and incorporating like more interesting design choices, which obviously would influence the entire country.
Agreed.
So like it makes it even more strange that she's like reverting back to something that would be considered being out of fashion. Like if I guess we had people that were dressing up like I mean I know fashion like comes around and waves, but it's not usually trendy to be wearing something seen as outdated.
Agreed. I love your theory there that she does it so that way he remembers her how she was.
Right.
Yeah.
There's all of these like little I don't know, like God, this whole like plot line is gut wrenching. Like it is so difficult to kind of like see his health deteriorating and her not knowing what is going on. Like, it is awful.
There's a lot of really heartbreaking topics in this series, but they tackle them in really well done ways.
Yeah.
Like, we have the Great Experiment, where the overtones are obviously about dismantling segregation. Then we have, the arranged marriage topic. And not only that, but her arranged marriage was to somebody who all of their health issues were hidden from her until, well into their marriage. And then they're not, having a normal royal marriage to begin with. She has to have diagrams drawn for her about consummating the marriage, and he just avoids her all the time. Like,
yeah,
that would be terrible. I couldn't imagine being stuck in a house that they had designed for you, which is basically just a gilded cage.
Right.
That part was awful to watch her go through. She's a royal womb in a gilded cage.
Yeah. Yeah, a bird, like a caged bird, a little bird. There's what I appreciate about George is, and what I think what we're seeing is, he has to be well aware of what's going on with his condition to an extent. Like, they don't know exactly what, like, the name of it is. He has to understand that he's losing, like, track and, like, memories, maybe, and getting confused. So I'm wondering if all of this pressure and all of this focus on his studies, astronomy, farming, if he's like, okay, the clock's ticking, like, I have to figure this out, I have to get this done, because what if I don't survive? Like, I need to, like, be the best king that I can be and do the most things that I can do to help people and help discoveries happen and stuff like that. And that's why he's, like, putting so much emphasis on farming techniques and astronomy.
I really enjoyed that his focuses were in agriculture and astronomy. Yeah. Yes. I really enjoyed that he was like a king of the sciences. He wasn't trying to wage war with anybody. It wasn't about,
look at my giant ship collection.
It wasn't about, like, conquering and taking other nations over, or endless wars and fighting. It wasn't about religious domination or British domination with George it wasn't, at least. But his focus was advancing the country and how the citizens of the country are living. And then astronomy seemed to be like a deep passion of his. And I really enjoyed this aspect of it. I'm glad that he wasn't like your normal egocentric monarch.
Right. I obviously don't know much about the real George, but I think that this plotline has really endeared him. And again, like, the same thing with his mother. Like, he's doing things that I find distasteful, that I'm not happy about, like the way that he's leaving his wife in the dark. But again, like, I can see his side of, like, well, what if I am really ill? What if I die soon? Like, what about all of these goals that I want to do to help humanity, like, go unfinished? And so he's, like, putting her on the back burner to, like, focus on his goals. So again, it's like that moral gray, like, where do we stand with this? And it's intriguing. I like it.
In the first 3 episodes, I'm, like, really on the fence with George as a character. I'm not sure if I'm not ready to say I like him or dislike him yet.
Yeah.
He is keeping her like a animal in a cage. I can understand that he's doing it because he's afraid of her finding out, like, what's going on with his health and things like that. But at the same time, that does not give you any dominion to hold somebody hostage like that. And you brought her here from another country, and then you're like, okay, see you later, bye. She has to be secluded during her honeymoon, or what do they call it? You're enjoying the first days of privacy of your marriage. And she's like, I'm on my honeymoon. And he's like, yeah. And she's like, but I'm just trapped here by myself and nobody talks to me. And the way that she
can't even have anyone come. She can't have visitors.
Right. Except for Lady Danbury, turns out. Because Brimsley came in clutch. Brimsley came in clutch there. I would much rather have Brimsley as my footman than Reynolds.
Yeah.
Reynolds seems to deeply care about the king and definitely looks out for him, but he doesn't seem as ride or die as Brimsley.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Like
Brimsley's a true.
Brimsley's a true. I love Brimsley. Oh, one other thing I just thought about, and it goes back to like how much I have enjoyed all of the tiny passive ties together that they've made between Bridgerton and Queen Charlotte. And that was about like when Queen George and her first meet in the royal gardens, and he tells her, "You're incomparable." So we figure out where the yearly incomparable concept comes from too. That was one of the first things that George said to her. There's a lot of really sweet aspects that seem very harsh from Charlotte in Bridgerton, but then when you see their origins in Queen Charlotte, it seems a lot more endearing from her. Yeah. Even though I will say she's a horrible mother from what I've seen. She's hilarious. Her zingers for her kids, top notch. Top notch.
Yes.
But she's a terrible parent. Sorrows and prayers.
Sorrows, prayers, prayers.
Your son
like every time they mention the dead daughter-in-law, like the son wails. He wails. It's like she forgot that he was there.
Well, his feelings are getting in the way of her wants. And in that way, in some ways, they very much kept her a monarch. Like, some of her behavior is very monarch-like. With her children, very much, she treats them much more like subjects than people.
I just had a thought. What if, like, because she knew, like, her situation could have been really bad. Like, she could have ended up in, like, an awful pairing, an awful match. That's why she's never, like, pressured her children to find matches. And up until this point, she's just been like, be happy, do what you gotta do. And now that the clock's ticking, she's like, oh, so now I have to, like, be in queen mode. Like, now I have to actually, like, do this thing that I haven't been wanting to do.
I kind of felt like her daughter-in-law and her granddaughter, who was the royal heir, passing away triggered a lot of this, like, I want a royal baby now. What does she even say at one point? Can you embroider me an heir? Everything is about the heir. Suddenly everything she says is exclusively about getting a royal heir. And I understand, like, wanting to continue the family bloodline, but it does seem like she was kind of triggered into this mindset when her daughter-in-law and her granddaughter passed away during childbirth.
There's a lot of trauma happening, like, so much trauma.
It's a lot, but we're only through the first 3 episodes. I'm really interested to see what's coming next.
Yeah, I'm excited to finish it. I really, like, had a hard time not, like, continuing watching.
I watched a little bit of episode 4 and then I stopped myself. I was like, don't do that. Do not get yourself ahead.
Are we crowning a smog this episode?
There are a couple that could possibly be Smaug.
Yeah.
We've got Lord Danbury, who could be a Smaug because he's very, very over the top.
I didn't even think about that. He totally could be.
Like,
oh, you're right. You're right.
We've got Lord Danbury. Then we've got
Queen
Agatha
Charlotte,
Danbury,
obviously.
Queen Charlotte. Even Augusta is kind of like everybody. I love it. Everybody is so high, like full tilt on the theatrics. I love these characters. I'm going to go with Lord Danbury. Lord Danbury is my episodes 1 through 3 Smaug.
I didn't even consider him, and you've sold me. Sold.
And he goes down in a blaze of glory like Smaug. Like, you know.
He dies what he loves doing, I guess.
Yeah. So we've got our Smaug, Lord Danbury. It's not actually who I originally probably would have went with, but after we've talked, I'm like, I think I might go Lord Danbury. Yeah. Like, I keep going to this one face he makes where he's like, just kind of looks crazed laying next to Agatha Danbury in bed. If I were her, I would have smothered him with a pillow. No
they,
way.
They did that man dirty. I've seen pictures of the actor, and he is very good looking. And
He is.
The way they have done him up. Yeah.
Why did that man not wear a wig like everybody else? He was like the only one at the royal wedding without a wig on. And then he had the audacity to tell her to not act like a peasant. Sir, have you looked at her? There's nothing peasantly about her. You, however, though, showed up with your hair looking a mess in a time period where that was not appropriate for anyone.
Lord Danbury, R.I.P.
Well, we're pretty sure it's R.I.P.
From
what we saw.
I hope. I don't know.
Because, I mean, like, is he dead? Good for her. If he's not,
So
I'm
good.
excited. All right, so what are you most excited to see in the next 3 episodes?
I'm waiting for the confrontation between Lady Danbury and Queen Charlotte once it becomes found out that she's feeding
Playing both sides.
Augustus, information.
That was really shocking to me.
I
was surprised.
I'm really curious to see how things go on with Lady Danbury. I would like to know if Queen Charlotte's brother ever comes back into the story, or if he's like gone, that's it, peace out to him. And I'm hoping for some type of confrontation between Augusta and young Charlotte. Like, are they able to come together and work things out and see each other's point of view and what's going on and make things okay?
I am most excited to see if Agatha can run Augusta for some more perks. Like, because if Lord Danbury is for real dead, she is going to need to probably figure some things out pretty quickly. Another thing this is probably the main thing I'm excited for, though. Agatha and Violet become friends later in life. So,
ooh, yeah.
But there seems to be a pretty big age gap between them.
Yeah.
So I'm curious as to, like, do their paths intersect? Like, at this point? Or are we just kind of seeing the first stages of where they would enter the storyline and then their story together comes later? But I do like that we're seeing them together in the more current time period. So I have hopes that, like, there might be something there.
I think you're right. I think that there could be. And that would be an interesting dynamic to, like, throw in. Oh, I forgot about... I really want to know about Brimsley and...
Reynolds.
Like, what happens to them.
Me too.
Because Brimsley's always alone. Like, in the flashback and then even
it's sad.
Yeah.
I'm sad for Brimsley and Reynolds. But with Violet and Agatha... It does make me think, because when we first meet Violet, she is definitely schooling her mother about her inappropriate viewpoints, or how at least Violet and her father don't necessarily concur with them. And seeing as how her father and her are both very pro dismantling the segregation that currently occurs in the Ton.
Yeah.
That's why I'm wondering, like, are we going to see some interaction between Agatha and Violet, like, earlier on in life? Is it going to be more about, like, when we watch Daphne and the Duke of Hastings get together? Because it didn't really say if even that was, like, they seemed very friendly in Bridgerton. So I'm really curious to see where the Agatha and Violet plot goes.
Yeah, and too, it's nice, like, you bringing up the Duke of Hastings and Daphne, because... we've already, now we've been given the backstory to how Violet feels about this situation, and it's carried over because her daughter gets together with the Duke of Hastings, and she's, like, not, like,
well, she doesn't bat any eyelashes at interracial couples, so...
Exactly, she's just like,
I do like that we got to see that she's had those same viewpoints since she was a child, and that she's been willing to go to bat against her weird mother for them.
Yep.
I'm excited.
I'm excited too.
So I think at that point, we're going to end it for today. Make sure to check back in a few more days, and we're going to go over episodes 4 through 6. See if any of our episode dreams come true, I guess.
Yeah.
Until then, make sure to share your thoughts. We can't wait to hear them. Like, subscribe.